Your quarterback rotation coming in. We know you started number one. All three had reps with the first team offense. How are you going to do it here in camp?
Yeah, we'll mix it up again. Obviously, it won't stay that way for the long term, but as we get started, we'll keep you posted, and eventually we'll settle into the routine we want.
Sean, following up on that, then does it just go from 3 to 2 to 1, or I guess how do you envision sort of the?
We'll keep you posted. I'm not going to sit here and lay out here's how it goes, because I think the mistake made is deciding how it goes. Organically, this my experience I think we'll see a rotation initially, and then we'll move on from there.
Chris Thomas in Denver Gazette. Sean, Bo Nix has had the last month to maybe hone up more on the playbook, that sort of stuff. Rookies reported obviously last week. What progress has Bo maybe made over the last month or so?
Look, he's a quick study, so the progress in the playbook will be just like it will be for Zach, right? They've both been here the same amount of time, I think. And, all of these young players are studying pretty hard.
Coach Zach Stevens, DNVR. Quinn Miners got the big deal last week. Why was it so important to make sure he was locked in for the long term?
Yeah, good question. Man, there were so many things that we felt strong about. We're excited for him. His consistency in how he played at a position we value, and it made sense for, I think, the player and the club. And so now I missed his fashion statement, but I understand it was something else. But we're excited we had that done.
Coach, what agonizes you more, lack of execution or lack of understanding of what that execution is? Lack of understanding of what
in general.
Yeah.
Like what?
Both in training camp and
Just period.
as the season
Just
started.
in football coaching.
Yeah.
Lack of execution or.
Understanding what.
Well, I think the first thing we do in evaluating players is the player, does he know what to do? So I think it's frustrating when he doesn't know what to do.
Sean, Nick Cosmer of The Athletic. You expect Payton to be able to Payton Stearns to be back kind of in short order? Or
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Coach, when the rookies get here after this offseason program, just not just Bo, but the whole class,
Yeah.
What do you want to see from them as they try to get ready for this first season?
I think they're all, in that acclimation process of trying to get up to speed. Both, we said this in the beginning, physically and mentally. They're behind. They go through the combine training, they go through all the preparation for the draft, and lost in that sometimes is the football preparation. So I know they've had a good off season. Man, our group in general, I think, has had a good off season. So it's good to see them back. It's good to get started with them, and but we're trying to shorten or speed up, if you will, the learning curve.
Troy Rink from the Denver Post. Coach, you've talked about liking the competition at multiple positions and the youth. When you're in a team where the roster is, do you have to live with more mistakes because you're younger at certain positions, or do you not allow that to be in part of the decision-making?
Well, listen, there's mistakes that are going to happen, and so you live with those mistakes, but we don't live with them consistently. I mean, I think with a younger team, I think we have to be smart with our installation. I think we have to be smart with, how much we want to give them. Yeah, and so there's, I think, a balance there that you really work with relative to the experience, but also the scheme.
Sean, how do you balance getting a proper evaluation from not just 2 but 3 quarterbacks, but also finding the guy to beat Seattle on September 8th, and is that timeline fluid?
I don't think you balance finding the guy to win against Seattle. I don't think that makes sense, the sentence. I think we're looking to find the guy to beat Seattle, and we're going to find that player. How do I balance the day? How do I balance the schedule? How do I balance the reps? That's all part of what we do relative to teaching and the teaching progression. I think the same thing exists, though. Look, the number one goal is to find the right 53 players here for our team. Certainly, there's a lot of focus on the quarterback position because there's open competition there. But I don't look at it as finding the balance. I look at it as finding the player.
Yeah, Coach, outside your building, expectations for this team are quite low. Odds makers have put your over and under at 5.5. You have long Super Bowl odds. What do you think about that? And does that, part of your daily speech to the players?
Look, if I spent time on that, in 2006, we would have never gone to the NFC Championship game. And I mean that seriously. Back my first year as a head coach in New Orleans. I don't have time to spend time on that, nor do I wish to spend time on it. I understand they have a job to do and where we're selected, and none of that means anything. It's stuff to talk about when the media cycle is quiet. We'll get ready to play, and we expect to compete. We expect to win.
John, you've had just any update on Cortland Sutton? Have you had any talks with him or discussions
No,
with him?
I mean, and there won't be any. He'll be here, like we talked about, and ready to go.
Sean Ryan McFadden from the Denver Post. You mentioned back in June that Aldrich Estimate, you expect him to be ready at the start of training camp.
He will be. He's doing good. Yeah, he's doing good. I think we had a couple players that are PUP, none that are, I think, surprises to any of you guys.
Hey, Sean, what difference do you expect out of Pat Surtain this year, given Justin and Josie's leadership departures?
Yeah, what difference do I expect out of him as a leader? I want him to be, himself. I think that he's always been a guy that leads on the field with his performance. Maybe not as vocal as others. So I'm not looking for a change in that regard, really. Now, that being said, more ball production, there are a number of other things that I think that he has as goals for himself. But I think from a leadership standpoint, I think that'll take place on its own.
Sean, Brandon Cristal from KOA. You obviously coached a long time, but last year was your first year here. So how much smoother with so much of your staff back and so many players back do you expect just kind of camp to go and nothing being new, I guess?
Yeah, I would say one thing, a better understanding of the personnel. At this moment last year, we had this spring, if you will, of non-padded practices, so there was less information on certain players. If there were more information at that very moment, maybe there's certain decisions you would have made differently. But more information right now relative to the skill set of the current roster.
Andrew Mason, Denver Sports. You mentioned that Quinn plays a position you value, and historically your teams have put more investment into guards, cap-wise, draft pick-wise than a lot of
Guards
other
and
teams.
tackles.
Yes.
I mean, if you just looked and said in general, we value the offensive line, center included.
How much does that help overall team building to get that part right, built from the inside out?
I think it's the most important position group on your roster. I think it permeates your building, and I believe that, and it served us well everywhere I've been.
Vic Lombardi, Altitude Sports. Coach, do you have numbers in place? Have you had numbers in place for each position group? And do those numbers change through the course of a camp? Have they changed over recent years with changes in the rules?
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, if we had up behind us a screen and we said, here are the optimum numbers, not at the expense of a better player, right? We're not going to just stick to the numbers if we feel like we're one deeper at a certain position. And then that can change with the other teams. We try to talk all the time about, man, ignore the depth chart because you're not competing against just the 5 tight ends on this roster. You're competing against the other 31 teams. So often training camp ends, there's a final cut down, and everyone will be waiting to see who wins this position battle, and it'll be neither. It'll be someone from another team. But I think there is a base structure to how a roster is set up that can change based on the scheme teams run defensively or offensively, but not at the expense of a good player.
Sean, obviously, we see the extension with Quinn last week. I know Pat's under contract next year. Is there a want to get a deal done with him long term, like before the regular season starts?
We'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted. That's one of those answers that, we'll get to it when we want to. Yeah, sure. We'd like to.
In terms of young players, obviously evaluating them, Cody Rourke at Mile High Sports, evaluating them during OTAs. In terms of being able to pick up the learning curve, as you mentioned, what is the biggest component you want to see from one practice to the other?
Well, I think are the mistakes being repeated? I think, are they trying to do what's being coached? How well are they doing it? And then, there's a series of things that we look at when we evaluate these guys. Certainly talent's one of it, but, how well are they doing it? And I think all of us, everyone in here who's covered this game has seen preseason games where they find a rookie and there's this kid named Jaleel McLaughlin, and we're in San Francisco and he has over 105 yards, and we're like, he grew that night. Like something took place that night. And so that's what we're looking for.
Uwazurike, do you anticipate him being activated Wednesday? And, do you want him back if he is?
We want him back. We don't have the same control. We can't tell you we're going to anticipate it. We'll see with the powers that be in the back.
We didn't see Greg Dulcich throughout the OTAs.
I didn't either.
Are we going to see him?
I think the plan is that he'll practice beginning this week.
Coach Cecil Lammy, Denver Sports. I'm going to piggyback on the Greg Dulcich thing. How far behind is he based on Lucas Kroll was maybe your best player this entire offseason? And I hope you had a good summer, by the way.
I do too. But did you say Lucas was our best player or best tight end?
It's arguable. He was among the
No, it
best.
wasn't. No, it wasn't.
No?
All right. I'll answer your question,
Okay.
but you're not close.
Tell me who was then.
We expect the tight ends to be back. We expect Greg to practice. I don't expect anyone to be on his piggyback or anything like that. I expect Lucas Kroll to make progress like he has. We were encouraged with what he did. And I think that position is important. These guys present different skill sets. Some guys block better, other guys are better receivers. Hopefully Greg can stay healthy. And we go from there.
Coach Woody Page, I didn't introduce.
But I would go with Meinertz. I would go with Surtain. I would go with these other players if you were wanting to know.
Woody Page, parts unknown.
Go ahead.
Last year, you had to utilize a wristband with 2 younger quarterbacks and one who's only started 2 games here.
Good question.
Want to not have to use?
No, I think the wristband's helpful. We've used the wristband with in the past with quarterbacks I've coached before and Breeze. I don't know that you want the whole offense, like the whole offense on the wristband. You might put a goal line section, a red zone section, a lot of times it's third down. But we'll see how they handle it.